My wife, Clara Reed, and I are both practicing attorneys, which made sharing a subscription to an expensive international legal database a matter of simple convenience. It was a small, practical detail in a life built on shared ambitions and mutual trust, or so I had thought. On the second day of what she had told me was a business trip to Chicago, I logged into our shared account to put the finishing touches on my preparation for an upcoming trial. As my eyes scanned the search history, a single entry that wasn't mine snagged my attention, pulling it taut like a tripwire. How to challenge the admissibility of audio evidence? The question on the screen seemed to mock me. The entire foundation of my case, the most critical piece of evidence I possessed, was an audio recording. A cold knot formed in my stomach as I immediately dialed Clara's number. When she answered, I kept my voice even. "Did you use our database account recently?" I asked. There was a beat of silence on the other end, just long enough to be noticeable, before she let out a light, airy laugh, the kind she used to dismiss things as trivial. "Oh, Alex, it must have been Daniel," she said. "He's the new intern at my firm. He borrowed my laptop to look something up a few days ago. He probably just forgot to log out. Is something wrong?" I forced a smile into my voice. "No, nothing's wrong. Just curious." We exchanged a few more pleasantries before I hung up. The smile vanished from my face. Daniel. Of course. The brilliant young intern Clara had taken under her wing, her personal mentee. He also happened to be the auxiliary counsel for the opposition in my upcoming trial. I stared at my computer screen for a long moment, then turned my attention to the original audio file, already securely backed up on my hard drive. With methodical calm, I copied a different version of the file onto a flash drive and slipped it into my pocket. I made a point to arrive early on the day of the trial. Just as I expected, Clara was there, not in the lawyers' section, but seated in the front row of the public gallery. She looked impeccable, the picture of professional elegance in a chic charcoal gray pantsuit. When our eyes met, she offered me a warm, reassuring smile, and silently mouthed the words, "Good luck." I smiled back, letting my gaze drift past her to the young man sitting at her side. Daniel had clearly put extra effort into his appearance, dressed in a tailored white suit that made him look sharp, ambitious, and utterly out of his depth. He was looking up at Clara, and the mixture of adoration and dependency in his eyes was so potent it was almost tangible. Clara leaned down, her lips close to his ear, and whispered something. A faint blush colored his cheeks, but he couldn't suppress the small, pleased smile that tugged at the corners of his mouth. If it weren't for that damning search history, I might have been just as fooled by my wife's performance as a virtuous and devoted partner. The courtroom's air conditioning was running at full blast, but a hot flush of anger crept up my neck. The trial began, and everything unfolded exactly as I had anticipated. As expected, the opposing counsel launched a vigorous challenge against the admissibility of my key audio evidence. I remained calm, methodically and patiently refuting each of their points with established legal precedent. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, he rose to his feet. His voice was clear, and his arguments were surprisingly well structured for an intern. He spoke with a confidence that belied his experience, and every point he raised hit precisely on the most vulnerable weaknesses in my chain of evidence. It was a masterful dissection, and every single argument he presented carried the unmistakable echo of Clara's legal mind. From her seat in the gallery, Clara watched Daniel with an expression of undisguised pride and admiration, like an artist gazing upon a flawless sculpture she had personally polished to perfection. In that moment, the painful truth settled over me. I wasn't her partner in this arena. I was the outsider, the one on the other side of the glass looking in. We had been classmates in law school, our lives intertwined for 10 years, from the lecture hall to the wedding altar. I had always believed we were kindred spirits, soulmates fighting life's battles side by side. But it was clear she had already chosen a new partner for the fight, and I had been relegated to the role of a stepping stone, a convenient rung on the ladder for her new lover's ascent. The trial concluded. I won. As I walked out of the courthouse, the tension of the day finally beginning to recede, Clara hurried over to me, her hand reaching out to take my arm. "I knew you'd be fine," she said, her voice laced with that familiar, intimate tone that now sounded gratingly sarcastic to my ears. I subtly pulled my arm away from her touch as I adjusted my tie. "Miss Reed's intern is very impressive," I commented, my voice neutral. "I almost lost—" The smile on Clara's face flickered for a fraction of a second before she smoothly recovered. "He's just starting out. You have to give the new ones a chance to learn the ropes, you know." Just then, Daniel approached us, positioning himself timidly behind Clara. He looked at me and said quietly, "You were amazing, sir. I still have so much to learn from you." His words were deferential, but his eyes held a challenge as sharp and pointed as a needle. I let out a soft chuckle, my gaze deliberately falling to the expensive watch on his wrist. It was the gift Clara had given me for my birthday last month. "Custom made," she had said at the time. "One of a kind." My pointed stare made Daniel instinctively hide his hand behind his back. The color drained from Clara's face. "What do you want for dinner tonight? I'll make a reservation," she said quickly, a desperate attempt to change the subject. "Can't," I replied flatly. "I have to work late at the firm." I turned without another word and walked toward my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, I glanced at the rearview mirror and watched their reflections. Clara and Daniel, standing shoulder to shoulder, a perfect couple against the backdrop of the courthouse. The control I had maintained all day finally shattered. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, my entire body trembling with a rage that had been simmering for days. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a message from my best friend, Marco. "Alex, my man, I got the stuff. Got to say, your wife's counter-surveillance skills are wasted in law. She should have been a spy." I took a deep, shuddering breath and started the car. "Clara, Daniel." This game was just getting started. I didn't go home. I drove straight to Marco's workshop, a cavernous space filled with electronic components and computer monitors. Marco was a college buddy of mine who, after graduation, had eschewed a traditional career path to specialize in a unique brand of private investigation and digital forensics. "Here's what you asked for," he said, handing me a thick manila envelope. "The spare key to your garage and the files I pulled from the dash cam of that flashy Maserati." Clara had recently purchased a new Maserati, claiming it was essential for making the right impression on high-profile clients. She treasured that car, never letting the keys out of her sight. Even I had rarely been allowed to drive it. "Also, I ran a check on that Daniel guy," Marco continued, opening a file on his computer. "His background is clean, normal family, straight-A student all through school, but it looks like he's suddenly come into a lot of money. Bought a new BMW last month, paid in full, and also purchased a luxury condo downtown." He looked up from the screen. "How does a recent graduate, an intern no less, get that kind of cash?" The answer was painfully obvious. "Thanks, Marco. Send me the bill." "Don't be like that," he said, waving his hand dismissively. He grew serious. "But seriously, Alex, are you sure about this? That woman—" "I'm the one who chose her," I cut him off, grabbing the envelope. "This is my mess to clean up. I know what I'm doing." Late that night, I used the spare key Marco had given me to let myself into the house. The living room was pitch black. Clara wasn't back yet. I slipped on my house shoes and, without turning on any lights, went straight to the study. The screensaver on Clara's computer cast a faint, shifting glow in the darkness. I sat down and typed in her birthday. Password incorrect. I then tried our wedding anniversary. Password incorrect. I stared at the image on her screensaver, a sleek white BMW, and a sudden, sickening idea took hold. I entered the license plate number of Daniel's new car. The computer beeped softly and unlocked. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain sharp and suffocating. The desktop was immaculate, with only a single folder named Project Stardust. I knew that name all too well. It was our firm's most important project of the year. A multi-billion-dollar international merger and acquisition deal. I was the project lead. I clicked open the folder. Inside was a single, heavily encrypted document. I tried a few common passwords, our anniversary, her birthday, my birthday, but none of them worked. I leaned back against the cold leather of the chair and closed my eyes. Clara, what else have you been hiding from me? The next morning, I rose at my usual time and started making breakfast, determined to act as if it were any other day. As I stood at the stove, Clara came up from behind and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder. Her voice was husky with sleep. Honey, why did you get back so late last night? An emergency at the office, I said calmly, flipping an egg in the pan. What about you? Didn't you say you had to entertain a client last night? Yeah, she murmured into my back. I drank too much, so I just ended up sleeping at a hotel downtown. Her arms tightened around me. I'm sorry I've been so busy lately. I feel like I've been neglecting you. I turned off the stove and turned to face her, looking directly at her beautiful, deceptive face. Clara, we're married. If something's going on, I hope you wouldn't hide it from me. Her eyes flickered for just a moment, a barely perceptible shift, before she smiled. Of course not. Why would I ever hide anything from you? I looked at her, at the woman I had shared a bed with for 5 years, and felt a profound sense of alienation. It was as if I was looking at a complete stranger, a person I had never truly known at all. The primary progress meeting for Project Stardust was scheduled for Friday. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense, filled with the senior partners and department heads. As the project lead, I sat at the head of the long, polished table, reporting on our current progress and outlining the next steps. When I arrived at a key technical clause in the agreement, I deliberately paused and looked at the head of the legal department, who was sitting across from me. Regarding this point, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room, we're going to need a more detailed risk assessment. Miss Reed, I said, turning my gaze to Clara, who was attending the meeting as an outside consultant from her firm. Does your firm have experts in this specific area? I had thrown the question to her without any warning, and all eyes in the room immediately swiveled in her direction. She clearly hadn't expected me to single her out in such a public forum. She froze for a second, her composure momentarily shaken, before she adjusted her glasses and replied, Of course, our firm has a top-tier team ready to support the project at any time. That's great, I said with a thin smile. Perfect, actually. I hear that Daniel, the associate at your firm, has done quite a bit of research in this particular area. Why don't we have him take charge of coordinating this part of the work? As soon as the words left my mouth, the room fell silent. Everyone present knew that Daniel was just an intern. Assigning him responsibility for such a core component of a multi-billion-dollar project was absurd. The color drained from Clara's face. She stared at me, her eyes filled with a silent, furious warning. I met her gaze calmly, a faint, unreadable smile on my lips. What's the matter? Does Miss Reed think that's a bad idea? Mr. Sterling, a senior partner from her firm sitting next to her, spoke up, his tone laced with annoyance. Alex, this project is critical. Entrusting this to an intern seems a bit reckless, don't you think? You worry too much, Mr. Sterling, I said, picking up my coffee cup and taking a small sip. I trust Miss Reed's judgment completely. An intern she has personally mentored must be exceptionally talented. Besides, I added, my eyes locking with hers, you have to give young people a chance, right? I threw the exact same excuse she had given me right back in her face. Clara's lips tightened into a thin, white line, a vein throbbing at her temple. She knew I had backed her into a corner. If she refused, she would be publicly admitting that her star protégé wasn't capable, which would be a humiliating slap in her own face. If she agreed, she would be taking a massive, unjustifiable risk with her firm's reputation. After a long, tense moment, she hissed through clenched teeth. Fine. We'll do as Mr. Morgan says. The others in the room had expressions that suggested they were settling in to watch a very entertaining show. I set my coffee cup down, the clink against the tabletop echoing crisply in the silent room. Then it settled, meeting adjourned. I was the first one to walk out of the conference room, and I didn't look back once. Back in my office, I locked the door and leaned against it, only then feeling the cold sweat on my back. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Clara. Alex, what the hell do you think you're doing? I stared at the words, let out a cold laugh, deleted the message, and then blocked her number. What was I doing? I was about to find out just how far she would go for her precious new man. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house. My mom was surprised to see me show up alone. Where's Clara? Is she on another business trip? Yeah, she's busy, I said, placing the health supplements I'd brought on the kitchen table. My dad came out of his study, glanced at me, and said in his usual low, steady voice, "In a marriage, you need to communicate. Don't try to carry everything on your own." A warmth spread through my chest. I know, Dad. After dinner, I walked with my mom in the garden. Alex, is something wrong between you and Clara? She asked suddenly, her voice gentle. I was silent for a moment. Mom, I said, if Clara did something to betray me, what would you do? My mom stopped walking and took my hand in hers. It was warm and soft. Sweetheart, no matter what happens, you have to remember that your family will always have your back. My eyes stung, and I fought back the sudden urge to cry. After leaving my parents' house, I drove aimlessly through the city streets. On some dark impulse, I found myself driving to the downtown address where Daniel's new condo was located. The white BMW was parked in its designated spot in the underground garage. I killed the engine and sat there quietly in the darkness of my car. I don't know how much time passed before a sleek, black Maserati slowly pulled into the parking garage. It was the birthday gift I had given Clara. It parked right next to the BMW. Clara got out, walked around to the passenger side, and opened the door. Daniel emerged, wrapped his arm around her waist, and leaned in to kiss her on the cheek. Clara smiled, linked her arm with his, and the two of them walked into the apartment building, nestled closely together. In that instant, it felt as if the blood in my veins had turned to ice. I stared at the closed lobby door, my fingernails digging so deep into my palms that they drew blood. So her so-called business trips, her late nights at the office, it was all to be with another man. My supposedly happy marriage was nothing but an elaborate, cruel lie. I picked up my phone and dialed Marco's number. Marco, I said, my voice so calm it scared even me. I need a favor. I want Clara Reed and Daniel completely and utterly ruined. On Monday, I arrived at the office half an hour early. Walking into my office, I saw a steaming cup of coffee and my favorite breakfast sandwich sitting on my desk. A handwritten note was tucked under the cup in Clara's elegant script. Honey, don't be mad anymore. I'll make it up to you at home tonight. I picked up the sandwich and, without a second thought, threw it straight into the trash. I turned on my computer, and a new email immediately popped up. The sender was Daniel. The subject line was, "Preliminary Proposal for Project Stardust Risk Assessment." I opened the attachment. It was a beautifully crafted PowerPoint presentation. From its logical structure to its insightful content, it was flawless, even better than I had expected. My eyes were drawn to a small logo in the bottom right corner of the slides, an elegant design that cleverly combined their initials, C and D. She was using our firm's most important work to pave the way for her lover. I closed the email, took out the flash drive from my pocket, and plugged it into my computer. On it was the video file Marco had sent me last night. The footage was a bit shaky, clearly from a hidden camera, but the audio was crystal clear. It had been recorded in the underground garage of Daniel's apartment building. Clara and Daniel were leaning against her car, arguing fiercely. "Are you crazy?" It was Clara, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "Alex is already suspicious, and you dare to provoke him so openly in that meeting?" "I'm provoking him?" Daniel's voice grew sharp. "Clara, let's get it straight. I'm the one helping you right now. Without me, could you have gotten the core data for Project Stardust? Without me, could you have played your husband for a fool all this time? I'm warning you, Daniel, don't forget our agreement. When this is all over, you get the money, and I get control of the firm after I divorce Alex. If you dare screw this up for me, I'll make sure you have nothing." "Ha! Trying to scare me?" Daniel sneered. "Clara, don't you forget. I have proof of all your dirty little tricks. We're in the same boat now. If this boat sinks, neither of us is making it out alive." The video ended there. I watched it over and over again until I had memorized every single word. So it wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was a calculated conspiracy against me and my company. The core data for Project Stardust. I shot up from my chair and bolted to the firm's central records room. All the physical documents for the project were locked in a special high-security cabinet. Only I and one other vice president, Mr. Peterson, had the keys. I unlocked the cabinet. At first glance, the files all seemed to be in order, but as I flipped through them page by page, my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. One of the most critical documents, a draft of the merger agreement, showed subtle but unmistakable signs of having been photocopied. I immediately went to security and pulled the surveillance footage from the records room for the previous week. Last Thursday night, just half an hour after I had left the office, a familiar figure appeared on the screen. It was Clara. She had used my spare keycard to get into the building and then into the records room. She expertly opened the security cabinet, took out the file, photocopied it, placed it back, and left. The entire process took her less than 10 minutes. And at that exact time, she had sent me a text message saying she was stuck in a dinner meeting with a client. I watched the familiar yet utterly strange figure on the security monitor, a deep chill running through my entire body. I was the biggest fool of all. I went back to my office and called Mr. Peterson. "I have some new thoughts on Project Stardust," I said. "I'd like to chat with you privately." Mr. Peterson was a company veteran, a man my father had personally promoted years ago. He was a man of unimpeachable integrity who despised backstabbers and corporate politics more than anything. We met at the small coffee shop downstairs from the office. I didn't waste any time with small talk. I placed my tablet on the table and played the security footage and the video of Clara and Daniel arguing in the garage. As the videos played, Mr. Peterson's face slowly turned ashen. "That son of a bitch." He slammed his fist on the table after watching, splashing coffee everywhere. "Alex, what are you going to do about this?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern. I looked him straight in the eye and spoke each word deliberately. "Mr. Peterson, I'm going to make them spit out every last thing they took from us." Mr. Peterson was silent for a long moment, then nodded firmly. Good. Whatever you need me to do, just say the word. I need you to help me put on a show. On Friday, at the final review meeting for Project Stardust, all the top executives and representatives from our partner firms were present. Clara and Daniel were also in attendance, representing their law firm. Daniel was wearing a tailored black suit today, his hair perfectly styled, looking brimming with confidence. He sat next to Clara, the two of them whispering to each other from time to time. A perfect picture of professional teamwork. The meeting began. I gave a final presentation on the entire project, covering all the key points and projections. Then, I changed my tone. Before we finalize this proposal, I said, addressing the room, I think it's necessary that we resolve some internal issues first. I looked directly at Clara and smiled. Miss Reed, I hear your firm recently took on a merger case that is remarkably similar to Project Stardust. I was just wondering how that's progressing. Clara's expression changed instantly. Mr. Morgan, what are you implying? Nothing at all, I said as I turned on the main projector. Displayed on the screen for everyone to see was the logo of another company, Horizon Group, the biggest competitor for the Project Stardust deal. I'm just curious why you, Miss Reed, as the primary legal consultant for our project, would simultaneously take on a case from our direct competitor. That doesn't seem to align with industry ethics, does it? The room erupted in low murmurs. All eyes, like daggers, shot toward Clara. That's slander! She shot to her feet, her voice sharp and indignant. Our firm has absolutely not taken on any case from Horizon Group. Is that so? I clicked the remote. A legal contract appeared on the screen. It was a legal services agreement between Horizon Group and an obscure, newly formed consulting firm. And the legal representative of that consulting firm was none other than Daniel's father. I then played an audio recording. It was a phone call between Clara and the CEO of Horizon Group, Mr. Jennings. In the recording, Clara detailed every strategic aspect of Project Stardust and promised to get them our final bid price just before the review meeting. Clara, you backstabbing bitch! The representative from our primary partner firm slammed his hand on the table and shot up from his chair. All the blood drained from Clara's face, leaving it as white as a sheet. She stumbled, grabbing the edge of the table to keep from falling. Daniel was panicking, his face pale with terror. He grabbed Clara's arm, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single coherent word. Alex, what the hell is going on here? Our CEO asked, his face dark enough to drip water. I stood up and scanned the room. CEO, everyone, it's very simple. Miss Reed used her position as our consultant to steal our company's most valuable trade secrets and leak them to a competitor in an attempt to manipulate the bidding process for her own illegal profit. My gaze finally landed on Clara, my expression cold and piercing. Clara, am I wrong? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of shock, rage, and a sliver of raw fear. She probably never imagined that her supposedly seamless plan would be exposed so publicly and so brutally. The room descended into chaos. Security guards rushed in and restrained Clara as she tried to flee. Daniel collapsed into his chair, his face ashen, his confident demeanor completely shattered. I walked over to him and looked down at his pathetic form. Daniel, do you know what the maximum sentence for corporate espionage is? He snapped his head up, looking at me in terror, his body shaking like a leaf in the wind. No, it wasn't me. She made me do it. She forced me, he shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Clara, who was being held by security. It was all her. She threatened me with my career. She said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure I could never work in this industry again. I was forced, Mr. Morgan. You have to believe me. I was forced. He lunged forward, trying to grab my leg, but I kicked him away in disgust. Forced? I sneered. When you were using the money she gave you to buy a new BMW and a luxury condo, you didn't seem to think you were being forced then, did you? I took out my phone, played a video, and tossed it on the table in front of him. It was security footage of him and Clara, arm in arm at a BMW dealership, him swiping a credit card with a huge, triumphant smile on his face. Daniel's frantic shouts died in his throat. He looked at the video of himself, then at the disheveled and defeated Clara, and the last shred of hope in his eyes was extinguished. The police arrived quickly. Clara and Daniel were taken away on the spot as primary suspects in a major corporate espionage case. Before she was led away, Clara stared at me, her eyes as venomous as a snake's. "Alex Morgan," she spat. "You're ruthless." "Am I?" I walked up to her and lowered my voice, speaking at a volume only we could hear. "Clara, this is just the beginning. Everything you owe me, I'm going to collect with interest." Her body went rigid. The farce was over. Only our company's senior executives remained in the conference room. The CEO walked over and patted my shoulder. "Alex, we owe you for this one. The company's losses would have been unimaginable otherwise. I was just doing my job," I said. "We're putting Project Stardust on hold for now. You should take a vacation, get some rest." I nodded. Walking out of the building, the afternoon sunlight was almost blinding. I tilted my head back and took a deep, clean breath. The nauseating smell of betrayal was finally gone from the air. I drove back to the home I had once shared with Clara. The place I had once considered my sanctuary now seemed alien and laughable. I went into the walk-in closet, took out the suitcase I had packed long ago in my mind, and started gathering my things. I didn't have much, so it didn't take long. Finally, I opened the drawer of the nightstand. Inside was a small, velvet box. I opened it. A simple, elegant ring lay quietly inside. It was the one Clara had used to propose to me all those years ago. She had said I was the brightest star in her life. I took the ring, walked to the bedroom window, and threw it out without a second's thought. Goodbye, Clara, and goodbye to 10 years of my stupid, wasted youth. I moved back in with my parents. My mom saw me dragging my suitcase in, but didn't ask any questions. She just quietly helped me set up my old room, and then made me a bowl of hot noodles. My dad sat on the living room sofa, pretending to read the newspaper, but I could tell he wasn't taking in a single word. I knew they were both worried about me. "Dad, Mom, I'm okay," I said after finishing the noodles and wiping my mouth. "I just missed being home." My mom's eyes reddened. My dad just sighed. "It's good to be back. It's good." That night, I lay in the bed I'd slept in since I was a child, smelling the familiar scent of sunshine on the clean sheets, and didn't sleep a wink. Just before dawn, I got a call from Marco. "Alex, Clara made bail." I wasn't surprised at all. She had the top lawyers from her entire firm behind her. The first thing she did after getting out was go see Jennings, the CEO of Horizon Group. Marco's voice was grave. "My guy lost them. I have no idea what they talked about." "Got it." I hung up, my gaze turning cold. "Clara, you think this is over? You're so naive." I got out of bed, showered, got dressed, and made myself look impeccable. The man in the mirror had a determined, vibrant look in his eyes that had been missing for a long time. I called my dad's longtime secretary. "Mr. Chen, could you schedule a meeting for me with Mr. Jennings from Horizon Group? Just say I want to discuss a business proposition." My dad's company and Horizon Group had been business rivals for years. But in the world of business, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Mr. Jennings and I met at a private club. He was a man in his late 40s, well-maintained, and looking younger than his age. He was a little surprised to see me. "Mr. Morgan, I've heard a lot about you. To what do I owe the pleasure of this meeting?" "You're too kind, Mr. Jennings," I said, cutting straight to the chase. "I came here today to offer you a gift." I pushed a flash drive across the table to him. "What's this?" "You'll know when you see it." Mr. Jennings gave me a suspicious look, then plugged the flash drive into the laptop he had with him. On the drive was all the data Clara had stolen about our Project Stardust, as well as the complete recordings of her promising to help Horizon Group win the bid. But beyond that, there was something even more important. It was a detailed, multi-stage plan concocted by Clara and her firm's senior partners to systematically short Horizon Group's stock. Their plan was to first use the inside information from Project Stardust to help Horizon Group win the contract, driving up its stock price. Then, they would suddenly leak a manufactured scandal about Horizon Group using bribery during the bidding process, causing the stock to plummet. They stood to make a massive fortune from the move, and Clara was the time bomb they had planted right next to Horizon Group. Mr. Jennings's face grew paler and paler as he read, beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. "That venomous bitch," he finally exclaimed, slamming the laptop shut, his body trembling with rage. "Mr. Jennings, are we ready to talk about a partnership now?" I asked, picking up my teacup and watching him calmly. He looked at me, his expression complex and calculating. "Mr. Morgan, what do you want?" "I don't want anything," I smiled. "I just want Clara Reed and the people behind her to pay the price they deserve." Mr. Jennings was a smart man. He knew that working with us to take down Clara and her law firm was his most advantageous move. We quickly reached an agreement. After leaving the club, I received an unexpected call. It was Daniel's mother. She was sobbing hysterically on the other end of the phone. "Mr. Morgan, I'm begging you. Please let our Daniel go. He's still so young, his life can't be ruined like this." "He's still young?" I sneered. "When he was colluding with Clara, stealing trade secrets, and nearly destroying our company, did he think about how young he was then?" "It was all Clara. It was that goddamn woman. She tricked our Daniel. She told him she would mentor him, that she'd make him the youngest partner at the firm. Our son was just tricked by her." "Ma'am, is there any point in saying all this now?" Yes, there is," Daniel's mother said urgently. "We have evidence. We have a recording of Clara admitting that she planned the whole thing. If you'll just let Daniel go, we'll give you the recording." I fell silent. The dog-eat-dog drama was playing out exactly as I had expected. "Mr. Morgan, please. He's our only son." "Fine," I heard my own calm voice respond. "Send me the recording. As for Daniel, his sentence reduction will depend on the value of this recording." After hanging up, I received an audio file. I played it. It was a conversation between Clara and Daniel. "Don't worry," Clara's voice said. "Once I'm done with Alex, divorce him, and get my hands on his shares in the company, I'll promote you immediately. Then the whole firm will be ours. That old fossil Sterling should have retired ages ago. The first thing I'll do when I become a senior partner is kick him out." "Alex? He's just a stupid, sentimental man. I've had him fooled for 10 years, and he still thinks I genuinely love him. If it weren't for his father's influence and connections, I would have divorced him ages ago." In the recording, Clara's voice was dripping with contempt and cold calculation. I listened to the whole thing without any expression, then forwarded the recording to 2 people. One was Mr. Jennings. The other was Mr. Sterling, the founding partner of Clara's law firm, the one she had called an old fossil. After doing all that, I drove to the river and rolled down my window. The evening breeze blew in, carrying a slight chill. I looked at the shimmering lights on the water and suddenly felt an immense wave of exhaustion. Our 10-year relationship was nothing but a joke. I had given her all my heart, and in the end, I had only served to facilitate her ambition and her love for someone else. My phone rang. It was Clara. I hung up immediately. She persistently called again. I finally answered but said nothing. "Alex, where are you?" Her voice on the other end was clearly panicked. Did you send something to Mr. Jennings and Mr. Sterling?" "Clara," I said calmly, "the game is over." "No, Alex, let me explain. It's not what you think. It was all Daniel. He seduced me. The person I love has always been you." "Is that so?" I let out a soft laugh. "Too bad. You disgust me." I hung up the phone and blocked her from all my contacts. The next day, the entire financial and legal world exploded. Clara's prestigious law firm was at the center of a massive scandal. Senior partners were under investigation by the SEC for insider trading and stock market manipulation. The firm's stock plummeted the moment the market opened, wiping out countless investors. And Clara, as the central figure in the incident, became a pariah, public enemy number one. Stealing trade secrets, betraying partners, faking a relationship, every charge was enough to destroy her reputation completely and irrevocably. I saw the news footage of her being escorted out of her office by police. She was wearing an expensive suit, but she looked haggard and disheveled. Through the screen, I could see the despair and pure venom in her eyes. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the sofa in my dad's office, leisurely sipping a cup of coffee. "Is it all taken care of?" my dad asked. "It's clean," I replied. "What are your plans now?" "First, get the divorce finalized. Then maybe go abroad for a while, clear my head." My dad nodded and didn't say anything more. That afternoon, I got a call from Clara's mother. She cursed me out from top to bottom over the phone, saying I was cruel and heartless, with no regard for our marriage, for sending my own wife to prison. I didn't say a word, just quietly listened to her rant. "Ma'am, are you finished?" I asked calmly when she finally paused for breath. "If you're done, then I'm hanging up. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you the condo Clara and I owned is on the market. If you want to keep any mementos, you should contact the real estate agent soon." With that, I hung up. Dealing with clueless people like her, every extra word is a waste of breath. A week later, I received the final divorce decree from the court. Clara and I were, at last, completely done. The day I got the decree, I paid a visit to the prison. Through a thick pane of glass, I saw Clara. She was wearing a standard-issue prison uniform, her long hair cut short. She had lost a lot of weight, her eyes were sunken, and all traces of her former elegance and poise were gone. She became agitated the moment she saw me, grabbing the phone and screaming at me, "Alex Morgan, I'll haunt you even as a ghost!" I picked up my phone and watched her calmly. "Clara, you know what? I came here today to tell you something. That watch you gave Daniel, you think I only found out when I saw it on his wrist? I designed that watch myself 3 years ago. The original design file is still on my personal computer." I paused, watching her face freeze instantly, and then said word by word, "The custom logo on it. It stands for liar and you. You liar." Her pupils contracted violently. "Also," I continued, "did you really think you got away with stealing the Project Stardust files without anyone knowing? The merger agreement you photocopied was a second, slightly altered version I planted in the file cabinet. The real version was sent to the executives just 10 minutes before the final review meeting began. What you sold to Horizon Group was, from the very beginning, a completely worthless piece of paper." Clara's face went from deathly pale to a deep, bruised purple. She stared at me, her eyes burning with a hatred so intense it felt like she wanted to tear me to pieces. "Why?" she squeezed out through her teeth. "No reason," I said, standing up and giving her one last look. "I just wanted you to know that if I can build you up, I can also make you crash and burn." I turned and walked away without looking back. Behind me, the visitation room filled with the sound of her hysterical screaming and the crash of the phone being smashed against the glass. It had nothing to do with me anymore. 3 months later, I had all my affairs in order and was ready to fly to London to start a master's program. At the airport, I ran into Mr. Peterson. He was seeing his son off to study abroad. Alex, off to somewhere. Yeah, Mr. Peterson, just getting away for a bit. Good for you, he said with a sigh. Your dad told me everything. You did the right thing. In the end, a man has to rely on himself. We chatted for a few more minutes and then said our goodbyes. Before boarding the plane, I scrolled through the news on my phone. An alert popped up. Horizon Group CEO Mr. Jennings criminally detained by police on suspicion of large-scale commercial bribery. I smiled and turned off my phone. In this world, there is no hate without reason and no love without a price. Every gift is secretly marked with a tag. The plane took off, climbing steadily through the clouds. I looked out the window at the deep blue sky and the cotton-like clouds below, a sense of profound peace settling over me for the first time in months. The air in London was damp and cool. I rented a small apartment not far from the university and started a new, quiet life. My days were filled with classes, libraries, and museums. Sometimes I did nothing at all, just sat by the Thames, feeding the pigeons and letting my mind wander. I hadn't felt this relaxed in a very long time. One day, in a small art gallery in Soho, I saw a painting. It depicted a man standing on the edge of a cliff. His back was to a deep, dark abyss, but his face was turned toward the rising sun. There was no fear on his face, only peace and a quiet hope. I stood in front of that painting for a long time. The gallery owner, an elegant British woman, came over and said to me, "The name of this piece is Rebirth." Rebirth. I smiled. Yes, Rebirth. The day before I was scheduled to leave London, I got a call from Marco. Alex, Clara, and Daniel were both sentenced. 15 years for her, 7 for him. Also, one more thing. Clara got into a fight in prison. Someone broke her arm. They say it'll probably be a permanent injury. So, Alex, got anything you want to say? I thought for a moment and then said, I wish her a pleasant rest of her life. Then I hung up. I booked a flight back home for the next day. The moment the plane landed, I looked at the familiar city skyline, the familiar lights, and suddenly felt that it was all in the past. My dad came to pick me up at the airport. He froze for a second when he saw me. You're thinner and tanner, he said, taking my luggage. His words were critical, but he couldn't hide the concern in his eyes. Dad, I'm back, I said, giving him a big hug. It's good to have you back, he said, patting my back. On the way home, my dad said suddenly, By the way, the government put that old Horizon Group project back up for bid. Our company won it. I was surprised. How did you manage that? My dad glanced at me in the rearview mirror and smiled. My son taught me. The way to deal with an enemy is to hit them once, so hard they can never get back up. I looked at my dad's profile in the dim light of the car and suddenly broke into a wide smile. We were a family. When I got home, my mom had prepared a huge spread of all my favorite dishes. The 3 of us sat around the table, eating and talking as if nothing had ever happened. Sunlight streamed through the dining room window, bathing the table in a warm, bright glow. It felt good to be home,